Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for May 1st in the year of our Lord 2025. This is our one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, and to do so on your radio and the traditions of our founding fathers. Yes, indeed, the checks and balances brilliantly put in place by the founding fathers. One of the peaceful solutions we still have at our fingertips. Let's get involved. It's not a spectator sport, people. It's not politics either. It's liberty versus tyranny, and it's the way to get there. What's the way, you ask? The supreme law of the land, chaining down the general government. Welcome to the show. It is May Day, they say. What is it, May 1st, May Day? May Day, May Day. Everything's going down. That's what the Democrats want you to believe. It's a blatant, flat-out lie, ladies and gentlemen. America's not going down. A lot of great things have happened in the first 100 days of Trump's administration. Congress has become the enemy of the president and the people. Sad but true. They're derelict in their duty, to say the least. They should be backing Donald Trump's executive orders and leadership. We should be putting tariffs at the border. Yeah, Donald Trump is using tariffs as a negotiating tool to get country after country after country to sit down and create fair trade, not free trade. I commend him for his efforts. On the other hand, you know, the Democrats want you to believe that the whole world's melting down. You're going to be in the depression of the 1930s, they kind of say. Well, they say, economists believe there's a recession, and then they say things are going badly. And anyway, it goes on and on. The battle for the hearts and minds of the American people is at the center of this whole discussion. And I would like to set the record straight on a variety of things. I'll do that now. First segment, myself. Second segment, Bryan Rust over at freewatercoinco.com joins me, and we'll break down the economic realities, because that's where they say, well, Donald Trump's approval ratings are tanking. It's all because of the economy. No one trusts the Donald on the... Okay, this is a big old bunch of spun lies. The Democrats got so spanked in the election that they didn't do much. They were quiet. But now spring has sprung, people, and they're coming out of their holes, and they're coming out swinging. Okay? Kamala jumps in with an angry rant now. She's surfacing again. See what I mean? It's all starting to happen now. And what they want to do is they want you to basically help them create this self-fulfilling prophecy that the economy is just absolutely going to melt down. I mean, Social Security's on the ropes. Everybody's applying for Social Security because they're panicking. Everybody's buying goods and services everywhere ahead of the tariffs that'll just ruin the world. And I mean, it's like putting a piano wire around the neck of the economy and just stranglehold, baby. Okay, see, it isn't true. And I'll get into that. But yesterday I had on my buddy James Edwards. He does a great job, thepoliticalcesspool.org. Him and I don't agree on everything. You know, he's fine with a monarch, for instance. He thinks King George wasn't so bad. I agree that King George wasn't so bad compared to some of the tyrannical things we're seeing today. I concur. At the same time, hey, man, I'm not the guy. Let me just say this again. I'm not the guy that's going to go ahead and want King George. I want us to obey the supreme law of the land, and I don't believe in kings. Unless it's King Jesus, then I'm in. You see what I mean? Anyway, leading Democrats are starting to create violence, political violence, and etc. Yeah, they're pulling a Maxine Waters, and they're fecklessly escalating their rhetoric to incite their base into intimidating their political opponents. All right? Pritzker, for example, governor of Illinois, taking the lead there. This whacked-out guy's calling for literal violence. Yeah, in February, he compared Trump and supporters to Nazis. Now Maxine Waters commits sedition several years ago. We played that. Illinois Governor J.D. Pritzker, with a new soundbite coming out. He's a Democrat billionaire. Literally calls for political violence. He says, you know what, Republicans... These guys shouldn't have a moment of peace. Now, I don't even like pointing the turret at Republicans and Democrats. That's a fake fight in the first place, intent to divide and conquer we the people. The Founding Fathers warned against partisan politics, so jettison parties, folks. The party's over. Nevertheless, Trump called for an investigation by Attorney General Pam Bondi into Act Blue. You say, what's that? Yeah. Act Blue is a system that works across the Democratic Party's ecosystem, if you will, to raise money. The problem is the inquiry, the investigation is extensively meant to deal with this possible illegal donation scenario where you make straw donations. What's that, you say? Well, it's making donations in other people's names. They say as well as hard dollar contributions from foreign donors. I'm going to think like George Soros and other international billionaire clowns. But I digress, except to say, look, this Act Blue is a serious thing. They are basically making tiny donations, hundreds, thousands of them, in people's names that when you hunt down the people, they say, I didn't make that donation. Wait a minute, I didn't make 52 donations in the last 90 days or whatever. So the question is, I appreciate Donald Trump investigating Act Blue. I think that's exactly what needs to happen. Here's my fear. Here's my concern. Here's my problem. Trump said, I want the results of the investigation from Pam Bondi in the next 180 days. Donald Trump, I don't mean to be rude, buddy, but you don't have 180 days to give Pam Bondi to look into that. If we're talking election fraud, you better get on that yesterday. Get rid of the machines, work towards same-day voting, all this kind of stuff, paper ballots. We can go on. But this Act Blue thing and this money fundraising thing, hey, how long does it take to investigate fraud? Okay, it should be very easy. People have already done all the legwork for this. People like James O'Keefe, people over at True the Vote, people over at Mike Lindell's great organization. It's called the Lindell Offense Fund, I think is what it's called. All right, these people have already done a lot of the work here. You don't need to just talk to these people. They've offered their services to help. You get Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and True the Vote, and Mike Lindell, and James O'Keefe, and several other votes rights groups that, we can get to the bottom of this really quickly. We don't need 180 days. So that concerns me. And I'll tell you what else concerns me. The idea that, the first 100 days are just bad deal by Trump. It's a lie. Trump's first 100 days were undermined by the lack of checks and balances in the system, folks. The judges just decided that they're more powerful than the president. It's insane. You've got a derelict Congress. They've been slow walking or ignoring everything Trump's been trying to do. Why haven't we codified a lot of the things that Trump has provided tremendous leadership on? Why haven't we codified those things into law via the proper legislative body? See what I mean by the checks and balances are violated? You got President Trump ruling by executive order. That's wrong in the first place. Go to the legislative branch, Donald. But then the legislative branch should be claiming their responsibilities. They're doing nothing. The courts are shutting down Donald. You've got whacked out activist judges going crazy. You've got a dishonest media that doesn't tell you the truth about what's happening at all. They have their manipulated agenda because they're in bed with the Democrats. We, the people, seem to be checked out of the mix for some reason. Why is that? Now, Donald Trump literally says, I run the country and the world. That's what he told The Atlantic. I don't know why on earth, if you're Donald Trump, you would say such a thing. But, he's a little bit so caught up in his grandiose who he thinks he is, right? Anyway, there you have that. I just don't know how to respond to all this by Trump. Because it's so foreign from my nature. I'm not perfect. And I know some people would say, Sam, you're the last guy that's humble. You're probably right about that. But I would say this. We really need to think about Trump. He's a great guy. He's done a lot of good. I think because of life-threatening scenarios last year and et cetera, I think he's really come to be a different person. He really is. I think he's more religious. I don't know if he's a Christian or a Jew, really. I hear smatterings of both. Nevertheless, if you take the Judeo-Christian view and say, look, we believe in Christ and we believe in these principles and we believe in, for example, are you an Old Testament or a New Testament Christian or Jew or whatever? Okay, all that points to God Almighty and His Son, Jesus Christ. I get that, believe in that, support that. But where do we go from here? I think Donald Trump's a different man than he used to be. And I'll give him credit for change. We believe in change. That's called repentance. It's a wonderful thing and very good. But even though I believe Trump's changed, he just in my mind, struggles. Okay? And here's what I mean. Trump says that he's made no mistakes, despite the falling economy and the lower approval ratings. USA Today. Trump says he's made no mistakes. Trump's first 100 days have gone according to plan. What would he do different? Not a thing, he says. Why? That's the toughest question, he says. Because I don't really believe that I've made mistakes, he said in a town hall. I run the country and the world, Donald Trump tells The Atlantic. This isn't the kind of, I'd rather have a humble foreign policy and president. How about you?
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education, conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? Please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at CSPOA.org. That's CSPOA.org.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Bryan Rust with me, freewatercoinco.com. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you so much, Sam. Hope you're doing great.
I'm doing fantastic, but I'm talking about Donald Trump and the first 100 days. I really blame a lot of that on Congress more than anybody else, and no one's pointing that out but me. But look, they're slow-walking Donald Trump's efforts. They're not codifying what he's done into law. He's provided some tremendous leadership in many ways. So they're derelict in their duty. Then the courts are attacking President Trump. And so we really have a failure of checks and balances primarily due to Congress. But I'm also saying Trump coming out of the gate, I think he's a changed man. I think his sparing his life a couple of times has kind of made him focus on the things that are important. I think he's different than he used to be. I commend him for that, and I support that. But in my mind, he's got kind of a humility problem. Trump says he's made no mistakes. First 100 days have gone according to plan, Brian. What would he do differently? Not a thing, he'll tell you. That's a question that I kind of struggle with, he says, because I don't really believe I've made mistakes. He said this at a big old town hall, and then he said, hey, wait for the next year. The economy is going to be great. Your thoughts?
Well, I think there are some mistakes, and I'm sure he's overwhelmed with all the things going on that he's trying to accomplish, and you know the left continues to want to clutter up all the progression and halt things, but I'd like to see a little more of those that are attacking and hurting him going forward. I'd like to see more accountability. That's what I'd like to see, because, where's Congress, or where's these people that have done this? Where's the money that's gone out and that they've tried to bring back? There just doesn't seem to be any accountability for stealing government money or for halting the process of moving forward on great ideas or things that the people want. And then we get their you know, the left basically says, well, he's not doing good and people don't like him and he's the worst that's happened, and their fake news comes out on that. I'd like to just see, clean up the fake news stuff and let's get back to the truth.
Trump says, I run the country and the world, he says in an Atlantic interview. Then he says he's made no mistakes. The first 100 days have gone according to plan. Then when the economy is brought up, Donald Trump says, be patient. Trump reacts to new report that the economy contracted under his watch. Next headline, day 101. Trump's triumphant start hits an economic roadblock. The hard, cold reality of a contracting economy are a president's nightmare. For the first time in 3 years, the U.S. economy, quote, contracted. And so I look at that and I go, okay, what is an economy retraction, Brian? When they say the economy retracted, what does that even mean, sir?
Well, it stepped back probably, you know, maybe it retracted. I mean, you know, kind of instead of moving forward, we kind of went backwards. And I don't think that we're moving backwards, as they're not allowing him to kind of speed things up and get things done quicker. They're kind of tying it up in court. You've got judges that are not allowing him to, you know, accomplish some of these tasks. Anyway, it's just that's what I would say that would mean.
All right. The reason that I asked that is because when we talk about the economy retracting, that's a completely different discussion than, say, a recession or a depression or any of these kind of terms. And I think economically people get really mixed up in what these things mean, Brian. And the reason that I bring this up is because, you know, what is the economy? And I know it sounds like, Sam, are you stupid? What do you mean? What is the economy? The economy is the transfer of goods and services between individuals and businesses, right? Isn't that the economy?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if we're talking about the transfer of goods and services between businesses or people, that's how I would define the economy. And if there's no transactions between businesses or people, there's no economy. If there are transactions between businesses and people, there is an economy, okay? And then the question becomes, how much transaction should take place? And that's where I believe we're kind of off the rails. See, this fake money system based on the Federal Reserve, you borrow the first dollar from the Fed, they've got a monopoly on money, so you can never pay it back or else there's no economy. Because remember, they legally say, hey, government fiat currency is the only legal tender. Now, that's constitutionally wrong. I get it, but that's what they claim. Well, if that's the case, if we took all the dollars out of society, in other words, there'd be no economy because nobody could trade goods or services. Then what would happen is the black market economy or the underground economy would surface in an instant. Sam would trade, you know, silver nickels from Brian for loaves of bread or something if I'm a baker, or possibly airtime if I'm a radio broadcaster or whatever. Instantly, we've got an underground economy skipping, quote, legal tender, using barter. But the reason that I spend time on such basic principles is because of this. How much economy, in other words, how much trading, buying, selling, if you transactional transactions, I should say, happen between individuals and businesses. And how much of that is good versus how much of that is overboard. Let me give you an example. If they put $1 billion in Sam Bushman's bank account, Brian, and they put $1 billion in your bank account, you and I are going to do a lot of transactions, buddy. We just are. I mean, you got $1 billion, you're going to transact like crazy, aren't you, Brian? Yeah, you're just going to go ahead and get and spend and get and spend and, man, get more and spend more and get more and spend more. And how much getting and spending makes sense? So let's say that I got $10 at home. Is it okay to have 2, or do I have to have 20? I mean, the economy is not even growing unless I get $20, right, Brian? What about pairs of shoes or shirts or jackets or pairs of whatever? Shoes are perfect for women because it's like they got a gazillion of them, right? I mean, even go back to the Overboard movie of years ago, and that contractor made this shoe rack that flipped down to deal with all these rich ladies' shoes to make the point. The point is, how many pairs of shoes do we need? How much getting and spending makes sense? And I submit this, and then I'm going to have Bryan respond. I know I've been talking for a little while, but it's important to set this up. I submit to you that the under, meaning less getting and spending or less buying and selling or transactions, the economy's smaller, the more the economy's bigger, right? But at what point does it become too big, become a moral hazard to where I'm so focused on getting and spending that maybe my margins aren't good enough. Maybe I'm not making enough profit. Maybe I'm not needing what I'm buying so much. Maybe there's a sweet spot is the point about an economy. And in the early days of America, people really lived close to the ground, Bryan. They had their own farms, so they didn't really need meat. They had it. Or they could trade it locally with somebody down the road or whatever. Vegetables, meat, milk, cheese. They made a lot of it themselves. They worked hard. They grew it themselves in their gardens. And so most of the food wasn't getting and spending per se. It was hard work on the ground, and you got the fruits of your labors by the sweat of your brow. Does that remind you of any scriptural realities? Okay, and then now we have that all in restaurants and the entertainment industry and buying at the grocery store, and how much of that economy is necessary versus being able to have a victory garden versus having long-term storable food, grains in the warehouse or storehouse, so to speak. And how much entertainment do I need? Can I read a book and save a ton of money on entertainment? And if I decide that I'm going to drive an older car around, not buy a new car, or stay in my house and not get a bigger house, am I doing better for my family by doing that? Or am I ruining the economy, Bryan? Excuse me, Bryan.
Well,
this is an interesting discussion, right?
There's no doubt about it. You look at this, and I think there's some components that go into that, because I think we're in a society that, especially from a government standpoint, is control, and I think control is, well, at some, if you look back of what we had and where we're at now, it's mainly control. So we want to take the farmer, and we don't want you to grow crops. We're going to subsidize whatever, because we're going to send crops overseas and we're going to bring it in from some other country, or we're going to stop production of coal burning this or steel manufacturing, and we're going to give it to some other country. So the control basis is now we're kind of driven by a government who wants to control everything and either subsidize out of the country or make these deals. And a lot of these deals aren't good for our country, but it seems to be that's the power that they have and want to use. So we've kind of come a long way, but we've pumped this artificial stimulus to the people, saying we'll give you money, but we don't want you to do anything really for it or whatever. We'll just give it to you, and then we'll see. And that's kind of what's happened. And now we're in a mess. We're spending. And now this Doge thing, we're starting to see where the spending's going, and we're just raising our fists going, what the heck? We're shaking our head. What's going on here? And so we've digressed as a country as far as now we don't know where our food comes, tell you the truth. Are we eating real hamburger or are we eating something else? See, that's the problem.
That's a fair concern and problem. Bobby, get on it, buddy. Dig into that for us, please, my friend. RFKJR. No. So, look, let me just paint a scenario. What if I decide that I'm going to sell my house and get a smaller house? What if I decide that I'm not going to buy a new car, I'm going to live with one less car, and I'm not going to upgrade my cars? And I decide that I'm not going to go out to eat, and I'm not going to buy new clothes, and I take virtually an economic respite. Question for Bryan. He can answer right after the break. Have I now ruined the economy? Are we now going to be in a backspin? Are we going to be in a situation where the economy is contracting? And is that a bad thing? Bryan responds. freewatercoinco.com on your radio.
Protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. They have sealed the deal, the U.S. and Ukraine entering into an economic partnership, paving the way for reconstruction of a post-war Ukraine. It also grants the U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. This will help Ukraine to repay its war debts and fund reconstruction. Responding to a lackluster first-quarter GDP report, President Trump says the economy still feeling the negative effects of Bidenomics. Prayer front and center on the president's agenda today.
As he did during his first term in office, the president will commemorate the National Day of Prayer, which falls on the first Thursday in May. This morning, he will lead an observance in the White House Rose Garden. Since taking office in January, the president has invited a host of Christian and faith leaders to the White House for several events, including worship services.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston. When he's not busy launching rockets, he's building electric cars or presiding over a social media empire. Elon Musk looking to take his Texas operations to the next level.
Now, a new Musk project is taking shape. A vote is scheduled Saturday to turn the South Texas home of his SpaceX rocket company into an official city known as Starbase. Approval is likely. Most of the eligible voters are SpaceX workers. But that vote and other proposals to give the city new authority to close beaches for rocket launches has drawn critics who say the change would give Musk and his company town too much power. Keith Peters, Washington.
The Trump administration, through the Department of Health and Human Services, calling for greater reliance on behavioral therapy for transgender youth instead of so-called gender-affirming medical care. Watching Wall Street this hour, stocks have been in positive territory. The Dow is up 211 points, while the Nasdaq trading 312 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Financing a home, especially in today's market, is one of the biggest decisions you'll make for your family. Work with a mortgage company that puts you first. I do. Work with a lender founded on biblical principles like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I do. It's Mike Gallagher for the only mortgage company I've used for almost a decade now when financing or refinancing Fellowship Home Loans. I'm friends with the owners, Mike and Bryan. I even have them on my show occasionally. I know the care their team puts into every single customer. I can personally tell you that it's a smooth, stress-free process, and that's due to Fellowship's level of service and expertise that puts you in the right loan for your family and your goals. There's a reason Fellowship Home Loans is flooded with 5-star reviews. Whether purchasing a home or a cash-out refi to consolidate some higher interest debt, you can trust Fellowship Home Loans. Start the process. Make the call. 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
Yeah, this is David in engineering.
This is your wife in suburbia.
Oh, hi, hon. What's up?
How's the robot coming?
Well, it doesn't exactly respond to requests yet, but
Well, I know how frustrating that can be.
You do?
Uh-huh. I'm still waiting for my romantic lunch date.
Oh, yeah.
David.
Well, I must not have enough memory allocated.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
You know, your son said mama today.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Well, we'll have to have that sound chip changed to Dada.
Well, you could reprogram it yourself, you know.
I know. Hey, why don't we do it over lunch today?
Oh, you really are brilliant.
Thanks. You want me to bring the robot?
David.
He can order pasta in 11 languages.
Only if he pays for his own lunch.
Okay. Oh, don't forget to bring Chip.
I still wish we hadn't named him that.
Well, why? It beats general default.
Oh.
Family. Isn't it about time?
Do you know that a baby processes information 3 times faster than an adult?
An adult what?
Engineer. Funny.
I'll see you at noon.
I can't wait.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Oh, welcome back. Sorry, I was take the lead here, and Sam will be back in just a second. But
I'm going to turn Bryan into a talk show host yet, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I don't know about that, but anyway, glad to be with you. We're talking a little bit about our country and where we stand, our economy. Are we in a recession? Are we not? But discussing the factors of where we've been, where we are now, and it seems like that, we're scrambling. Well, President Trump is scrambling to get back some of these fair deals as far as trade and so on. Hence the tariffs, and it sounds bad, but it has been out of control. And I think bringing some of this industry back into our own country, so where we can create more jobs and be more self-sufficient is a good thing. And so is there a learning curve coming back? Yeah. Has it been abused and so on before? Yeah. So there's just a lot of things I think that need to happen, and it will take time. I'd just like to see, more of a working together where our president and Congress and the House and all can start pushing this, can down the road in a positive way instead of still where we're at, that fighting back
and I agree 100%.
And
And that's why I'm talking about what is a recession. A recession is if I decide to not upgrade my car and not get a bigger house and maybe not eat out so much, maybe save some money, maybe read a book and trim down my entertainment budget. And I think I'm doing really well for my family or for my finances. And see, they want you to spin that and say, oh my gosh, oh my heavens, Bryan, everything is shrinking. This is a meltdown of epic proportions. See, I don't see it that way. I don't see it that way at all. To me, if we want to strengthen the economy, the best thing we could do is start creating communities of people that would say, look, I'm going to get gold and silver from Bryan, and I'm going to get meat from this farmer over here, and I'm going to get milk from this other farmer and cheese over here. And you know what? Sam Bushman will do IT for all of you, and you guys can do this, and we'll do that. And now we're passing money around our economy. So dollar A goes from Sam to Bryan to farmer to store owner to whatever. And the money, that same dollar stays in our community. That's real economic prosperity. A dollar becomes $8 because of its spendability as it passes around through everybody's hands, creating transaction after transaction. Okay. But if I buy something from Walmart or Amazon and they suck that dollar out of our economy, it's spent once on the way out, and that's it, Bryan. This is fundamental to understanding, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And so, the factor is today, the generations, that are, coming up basically want, it's kind of the get rich quick type thing, and I want it now society. And so the farmer who passed away and handed it down to their kids and made, the factor of, well, we don't want to work as hard as Dad did. We didn't like that. Now we can't travel. We can't do a lot of this. So we're going to sell our land. And now we're just going to, and who's going to take the land is probably the guy that's building the homes. And so now all these homes are popping up everywhere. And now we're in a situation where, the average person can't even buy a home. So we've created this monster. And so now we're trying to, what do we do now? Kind of that. And yet we still need to have homes because we have this population growth that's still growing. And then transit, we're not in a big city out here in Utah, so we drive. Most people aren't going to drive from their house to a bus stop, find a parking spot, get on a bus and ride it somewhere else. We just drive to wherever else we're going. And so I get what needs to happen and so on, but yeah, the recession is the fact of, we can't afford this. The bottom line is people can, and then we go and do these quantitative easing by giving free money out to everybody. And now you can just sit at home, don't even need to go into work, and you got free money. So, but that, there again, there's the problems with that. So that we're in this problem scenario, but realistically, we're in recession right now. So
well, and recession relates to expectations in my mind. An example of that is, in the old days, you had a farm. Let's say I had a 320-acre farm. I might have 5 generations on that farm, and you don't really even know how many homes are on that farm because everybody lived in outbuildings. You had barns. People would sleep in the loft. People would have a guest house or a smaller house or, different things. And you kind of look at that and go, okay, now we have to have, 5 different homes for those 5 generations, all completely separate. You got 5 internet bills, 5 power bills, 5 tax burdens, 5, fix-up projects, 5. And you look at all that and you kind of go, I think that the world has been in recession since Adam and Eve almost, meaning that they've lived fairly poor from an economic output, always growing, always expanding economy. That didn't happen. It was like gold and silver. It held its value. It held its weight. It held it, and people used it sparingly as necessary. They stayed in their homes. They stayed in their families. They worked in their local neighborhoods in a community. The dollars or cents or, hopefully it was constitutional money, but it would pass around and make everybody wealthy, would all transact together. Now it's like every one of us in our local community. I don't transact with any of my neighbors. Well, I personally do, but I'm just saying, economically speaking, I buy everything on Amazon and Walmart, and therefore, hey, all the dollars are sucked out of my community. It's spend once and gone. And so we've got to really change the game, and no one's providing the leadership for these kinds of discussions. I agree with Trump to be patient, and I think things will get a little bit better. But when we talk about what a recession is, I'm kind of going, okay, wait a minute. A recession isn't what we think it is. If I can't go out to eat tomorrow or every day, am I in a recession, Bryan?
Yeah.
Dude, I got to go out to eat every day. Come on, man.
You do you?
Yes, sir.
See, well, that's this younger generation.
But is it a recession if I can't do that? And a depression if my neighbor can't? I mean, how do you define this? And they literally go, well, 8 economists define what a recession is. It's defined as 2 back-to-back quarters where there's less growth than there was before. Oh, that's not always the case, but that's sometimes the case, Bryan. And they go through this big old globbly gloop of garbage. If I stay home and don't go out to eat, are we in a recession? What if I decide that I'm not going to drive my car all those places? I'm going to stay home. What if I decide that all the things in my Amazon buy list, I'm just going to nuke and I'm not going to buy things for a while? Is that a positive or a negative, Bryan?
Well, I think there's some good to that in the sense of where, maybe tighten or you live within your means. We talk, maybe.
Whoa. You said something crazy, Bryan. Live within your means? What would the economy look like if we all lived within our means, Bryan?
Well, there you go.
Mean,
we wouldn't
in the current economic world, it would be falling off the cliff, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. But
I just find that interesting.
Well, it's all these factors and things that have happened over time. I mean, big box stores come in, and the Walmarts and the Costco's come in, and now the mom and pop shops are gone. So now they're out of work because they can't make it and compete with the big shops, right? And we're subsidizing these big companies to come in, so we're paying them to come in. We're going to give you the building. We'll pay no tax, free shipping for Amazon, all these things that go on. Well, all these things start to affect people and their money supply and so on. So now are they borrowing and getting 5 or 6 different credit cards to survive or live? And well, that's not good. So maybe we should give them a break and give them some, I don't know. It's this cycle pattern that goes on. And then we've got those at the top who, we're required to pay tax and like I said, live within our means and pay taxes and do what we're supposed to do on a right scale. But then we come and we look at the other side who takes our money and they work for us and they just reckless abandon it out there. And now we're starting to see that because it's transparent and we don't like that. And they don't care. And well, why, so we have all these things going on. And so we talk about our economy and people, what's going on and why are we here? And are we in a recession or all these things. And so it's these are all
Brian,
factors that we're trying to figure out.
Is it possible to live within your means, Brian?
I think you can budget and do that.
You're saying it's possible to live within your means?
I think so.
I agree 100%. All right, now let me ask you another question. These clowns that want to lead the economy, Trump, go ahead and skip the break. Brian's just too good. Right. freewatercoinco.com, ladies and gentlemen. Constitutional currency, real honest money at your fingertips. I digress. So Brian can live within his means, ladies and gentlemen. Now, these clowns that are leading us that want to define what a recession is and want to define what the economy is and want to say we're about to hit a cliff and somebody else is like, no, be patient and all this stuff. These guys are the ones that have put us $32+ trillion in debt, Brian.
Right. I agree.
And we're looking to those guys? We're going to really talk about this with these clowns?
Yeah.
I think we ought to be talking to the farmer that's struggling, to the guy that's got a savings account, to the family that lives within their means, because really isn't the fundamental unit of society family? And isn't the economy based on one individual or families or corporations in transactions? Okay,
yeah.
If that's true, why don't we look to people who are successful at it?
Yeah, that's what I would like to see. Let's have Trump bring a bunch of these families across the country together, and like you said, the farmers and the steel workers and all these. Let's bring those families in and let's talk to them. I agree 100%.
And why don't we start to look and say, look, here's the last question, economically speaking, that I'll ask. Is there a difference between the general economy, say the United States, or the world economy, or Sam Bushman's family economy? And when you put Sam Bushman, put X, because it's Brian's family, it's your family, it's whoever. It isn't about Sam Bushman, but the family. Okay, whose interests are we interested in when we say the economy's tanking or shrinking or growing or contracting or, recession or whatever words you use? Are we talking about good for my family, good for the nation, good for the world? And which reference point should we be using for this discussion? See, I think we should be using the family, not the country, not the GDP, not the global something output, whatever, the family. Why? Because that's where mouths are fed, Brian. That's where people can take care of their health care and be healthy or not. That's where people can live within their means. And if they're prospering, they can have entertainment. And if they're not, they can't. And whether they go out to eat or not is a personal family decision, but whether they have the wherewithal to do that or not is all important. And these societal ramifications cannot be out of alignment with the family. And if they are, we need a realignment, Brian.
Amen. No doubt about it, Sam. I mean, it's God, family, country. And I think if we could bring families in and talk to them and adhere. See, I'd like to get rid of all 560 people back in Washington, D.C. or whatever, 530 or whatever it is. And
545 in the House, 100 in the Senate.
All right.
No, 535 in the House. Sorry, 535.
We talk about draining the swamp. Let's get back to the family and bring in people who are speaking truth, not lies, but just creating good for the whole community, the country, and so on. I mean, that's the issue, and we've gone so far away from that, and we wonder why we've got all these problems.
All right, here's an interesting little twist. I find this a fascinating statement. Tucker Carlson told SiriusXM's Megyn Kelly that a Democrat who mirrors President Donald Trump's economic policies would easily be the Democratic Party's hope for 2028. All you got to do is mirror Donald, he says. And I find that an interesting statement. I don't think Trump's doing a bad job. I think Congress needs to back his play. And I think we need to bring all these countries to the negotiating table and talk about what's fair or free trade. But here's the point. We need to help families prosper. The best way to help families prosper is to not tempt everyone to continue to get and spend forever. It's okay if the economy gets smaller. Let me ask you a question. If I sell 1 billion pieces, let's just say I sell 1 million widgets, and I make $1 on every widget. I make $1 million, right, Bryan?
Yeah.
What if I sell 100,000 widgets, but I make $20? That's $2 million, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't I be better off selling 100,000 widgets and making $20 than I would 1 million widgets and making $1?
Yeah.
Well, that's a smaller economy, Bryan. That just can't be. Hey, what are you doing? Come on, Bryan. What the heck? See, folks, we're thinking about this stuff all wrong. Okay? What's good for the family is good for the nation, is good for the world. What's bad for the family is bad for the nation and bad for the world. And this continuing to con us into this economic meltdown, that everything's just melting down and there's no hope, and or that we just got to get and spend all the time to make it bigger and badder and better. And why do we got to sell cars overseas in the first place? It's so expensive to ship cars overseas and everything else. Why do we got to do that? Why don't we just make our own cars and buy our own cars and use our own cars and say the market's 350 million large? It doesn't need to just be bigger and bigger, because here's the point. What happens when you run out of 8 billion people? Well, then they say, well, we've got too many people. Well, then how's that going to help the economy unless we go to 9 billion people? See? I mean, there's flaws in their logic everywhere. But let's go back to the core. It starts with honest money, Bryan. Where's gold and silver sitting?
Gold's sitting at $3,230.10.
$3,200. Well, yeah, $3,230. Is that a high?
No, we've been over 33.
Okay, so it's close to a high for sure. Silver?
$32.40.
$32.40. That's pretty good. That's not near a high in silver. What's the ratio looking like between the two now?
We're still up there at 100-1.
Whoa, matching the 101 days, people. All right, if you want honest money and you want an accountability, you got to bring honest money back to the citizen. Otherwise, they're getting ripped off with fake money, inflation, all kinds of hidden taxes. And if you really want honesty, you've got to go back to the first transaction, it being an honest one. You can't print a $100 bill for 2.5 cents, write $100 on there, tell me it's worth $100, and then charge me interest. That's fraud right out of the gate, Bryan. And so we need to start with honest money, right?
Right, and the I agree 100%. But the issue is they've taken our money, and they've continued to print more money, and they've reckless spended money, and then they're out of control money, and now we're as Trump says, we've been ripped off by every other country in the world. Well,
and by the way, he's right. By the way,
he is, and so, but yet we, if you have honest money, how about we have integrity and virtue from people who are in positions to that hold these positions? Be honest in that there's so many at this level that are just so corrupt, and we find they're corrupt, and then there's more lies on top of more lies, and sin shows itself eventually, and we see it, and that's the problem. We're crumbling from the top because the leadership has no morals. They don't care. They don't, they say they speak out of both sides of their face. We care about you. Continue to pay your taxes, do what's good, but we're going to do what we want to do. And it's really this whole ripple effect that causes havoc because there's no trust. There's no, and we just, it's like these countries that have communism basically. I mean, you just get in a line to get your loaf of bread, and then go get in another line to do this because the control at the top is evil and corrupt. And so, and that's where we're at. And hopefully we can come out of this, and we're trying. But prayer day on Thursday.
It is National Day of Prayer today, and we need to turn to our God and pray for success and stability. Pray that we won't be led into temptation. Then we need to get up and go to work, and honesty is the issue. We need to really say, hey, what does my family need? Do I need to get and spend more? And if I don't, do I need to get and spend less? If that's true, I think that's what's best for the economy. There's a sweet spot of prosperity here. And when you borrow yourself into oblivion or you play games with hidden inflation, really attacks, when you do all these different things, you're deceiving yourself. You're always looking for the next grass is greener, or the next younger generation can make it the second they, turn 18, they're just rock star rich. Okay, that isn't the way real economies work. That isn't the way honest money works. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, the Lord tells me to work 6 days a week, Brian, so I do. Because of this very reason. Okay, it isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to be hard and sweat and tears and blood and, all those things are meant to be because it builds the character. It builds and if we want to have a nation of success, it isn't Don made the economy great and the world's good now because Don said so, and Don made this, that, and whatever move in Washington. Economies are going to be great based on decisions of the family and self-sufficiency, provident living. This kind of stuff is the key. Living within your means, as you pointed out. Doing these things that say, hey, what puts my family in the best position possible? And that is a real economy, Brian.
Absolutely. I agree 100%, Sam. You're hitting it right on. And that's the agenda I'd like to see, and you get to Trump. If you can get him to push that, but he won't even answer your phone. Sorry. But that's the case.
He's too busy meeting with the latest clown liberal, whatever goofball, doing something and telling you how great he is and awesome. And he's never made any mistakes and everything else. But I look at the economy and I say, folks, the economy doesn't drive the people. People, families, husbands and wives, children with fidelity to one another. See, this stuff then, when they need to eat, when they need to clothe, when they need shelter, when they need fuel, when they need the basics, that's an economy when we trade to get those things, whether it's trade for fiat money or honest money or barter or whatever. That's an economy. And the economy should have its supply and demand, its free enterprise reality based on free interactions between all of us, not government manipulations, not Donald signed an executive order, not the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates, the this, the that. The economy is based on what's best for me and my family and best for you and your family. We determine that in our free associations. And I think that the farmers that literally had their food at their house because they grew things and they raised things and they might have been cash poor compared to our modern day when you can put everything on a credit card. But I submit to you, they were rich. They spent their time together. They sweated together. They cried together. They laughed together. They did all the things that families do. And so I think that what we need is, and I'm going to just call it #Victory Garden. That should represent us turning to one another in families and turning to one another in communities and saying, look, I don't even give a rip what Donald says about the economy or any of these other economic clowns. I'm going to get out of debt. I'm going to live within my means. I'm going to prosper everybody around me. I'm going to think local. I'm going to work on my community and my victory garden, and I'm going to make sure I'm provident living, and I'm going to get on my knees and pray to God before I get up and go about it. And I'm going to, that's where the rubber meets the road, Brian.
Amen. I agree 100%. Get back to God, family, and country, and we can.
But you know what they'll say, don't you, Brian?
We're crazy.
They'll say you're a naive little innocent pup that has no clue. Why don't you go get an economic degree so you can talk about this intelligently? And why don't you come down to reality, Sam? That's what they'll say. See, you don't have a clue, buddy.
Well, I'll tell you, Sam. My quarter still buys me a gallon of gas.
I'm just saying right now that I think we ought to put Bryan Rust.
Yeah.
And he ought to basically talk to the nation about real economic output, and it starts with constitutional currency, honest money, gold and silver. You've got a friend in the honest money business, by the way, freewatercoinco.com. And then you can stand up tall and say we're based on an asset currency, not a debt-based fake news fraud. That's where we start. And then we look to families, not government, for solutions. Mom and dad know best. They always have, and across the nation, they always will. Brian, thank you so much.
Hey, God bless, Sam. Great job.
Rust Coin and Gift is now freewatercoinco.com.